Welcome back to a World of Warship Blitz video, and today's video is just a quick run through the Pan-Asian line. So I'm not going to play all these ships. In fact, well, I don't think I'm going to, all I want to do is basically say, listen, a whole lot of Pan-Asian destroyers dropped into my mailbox, and let's go and have a look at them. So down at tier 2 we have the Longjack, I think it's called. If I've played this on the PC, I play World of Warships on the PC, and my friend describes it as a Longjack, so that's what I'm going to call it. 5,000 hit points, of course, tier 2. Fairly good speed for a tier 2 ship. In fact, if I do let's just do a quick comparison against the other ships of the same type. So the Umikaze is probably its closest equivalent. So it's faster than the Umikaze. The V25 is pretty quick. It's faster than the Storozhevoy. So yeah, it's a reasonably quick ship. Good turn time, good traverse speed, and relatively quick off the mark. It's got 3 guns with a 5-second reload, doing 230 HE, but a whopping 550 AP. So the other, well, okay then, yeah, its guns just have faster reload. Where's the Samson down at tier 2? It's got better guns than the Samson, and obviously with those long-range torpedoes, it has fairly good range on the torpedoes, better range than the Umikaze. So actually, for tier 2, it looks like a pretty good boat. High-speed torpedoes, relatively hard-hitting, very hard-hitting, and a great surface detection. Not quite as good as the Umikaze, but definitely, well, actually the worst. Okay then, that's tier 2. Right, but anyway, there is a tier 2 Pan-Asian destroyer. Let's go tier 3 and let's have a look here. So for tier 3, whoops, let's get rid of tier 2. We have the Fra Rang, which is actually a, I believe its history is that it is sold to the Royal Thai Navy in 1920. So ex-British ship. Again, the deep water torpedoes. The hit point survival pool goes from 5,000 to 8,000, which is pretty good. In fact, that's very good. It's got a fairly good top speed, and if we compare it with some of the natural sort of competitors in the market, as it were, great top speed, good turn time, good traverse speed, but it is low tier, so they generally do. 3 guns with a 6-second reload. 6 seconds is a bit slow. It's sort of on the Japanese side. Well, it's better than the Japanese side, isn't it? I really haven't spent a lot of time looking at destroyers down here. Its HE damage is quite poor. Its AP damage is better, but still not that great. If we compare it with the weeks, yeah, not bad. Okay then. So actually, it compares favourably to the weeks. Well, things are quite unpredictable down here. It does have some AAs, 38 points of small caliber AA, good luck with that. 33-second reload on the torpedoes, which to be fair is pretty standard down here. Well, not quite standard. 31, not quite 31 seconds, but definitely fair range, so 606.3 kilometres. About 3,000 torpedo damage, so harder hitting than the Wakatake, but obviously being deep water, only harder hitting against certain ships. And again, torpedoes have good speed, so really quite a capable little ship. Tier 4 is the Shenyang, which I've covered. Tier 5 is the Janwei. So the Janwei is, let's go have a look at this fella. So the hit points are getting up definitely from 5,000 at tier 2 to 11,000 at tier 5. That's quite an improvement. It's pretty good. Well, obviously the Ochotnik isn't really a fair comparison. It's right up there with the Podvoitsky. Its speed, however, of the Jiangwei is fairly respectable. Middle of the pack, not quite by Podvoitsky speed, but still relatively quick. Guns, 5 guns, 6-second reload, which do moderate damage, better damage than the Mitsuki, but faster reload, which wouldn't be too hard. If we compare it with the gunboat destroyer, 6 seconds, it's pretty similar. In fact, it looks like it's got very similar guns to the Nicholas, except have they got the same range? Well, they've got better range. Okay, from a gunboat perspective, it's not quite the Podvoitsky, but it's not far behind. Torpedoes, again, deep water torpedoes, so just be aware of that. It is quite funny watching these ships try and torpedo other destroyers. They do 3.4k of damage, which is pretty respectable. That's and at this point, the range of the Japanese torpedoes is really starting to stretch out. Obviously, the Mitsuki has other problems, like only having 2 slow reloading torpedo tubes. So these reload in 42 seconds versus the 54 for the Mitsuki, and yeah, quite high speed. Although the Mitsuki seems to have the edge on speed and it has the edge on distance. It has probably about a 1.2 kilometre or 1.1 kilometre stealth torpedo band. And because it's tier 5, you can't put any concealment modules on it. So that's probably as close as you're going to get, unless you buy premium camouflages, which at tier 5 are temporary. So tier 6 we have seen before. That is the Fushin. Tier 7 is the Gajimada, which I have dealt with in the past in a video. I'll see if I can dredge it up and stick it in the links. Apologies if I don't quite manage that. The Xin Yang I have dealt with in the past as well. I think I remember getting those through crates and took them out for a spin, or at least did a comparison. So tier 9 is new. So we've got the Chungmu, and the Chungmu is, let us go and have a look at its history. The Chungmu is it's a Fletcher class destroyer. So the natural thing to do is to compare it with the Fletcher. So let's start having a look at these. So ship hit points 15,000 versus 15,000. I think most of those armour values look the same. It's got 1 knot additional speed, but it's slightly slower to get to top speed. And it has a very fractionally longer turn time. So basically pretty similar to a Fletcher in most respects. It's got 5 times 227mm guns, so 3.6 second reload with an 8.4 kilometre range, which looks pretty familiar, although the range is a little bit better with the Chungmu. 330 and 350 damage with a 3% fire chance, looks all very familiar. So this is in a lot of respects a Fletcher. Where it differs from the Fletcher is, well, actually, one place it differs from the Fletcher is it's got a smoke generator. I thought it had radar. Why did I think it had radar? It's got air defense. That is the Fletcher, that's why. So how it differs from the Fletcher is, that's more like it. It's got a single radar charge. And I'm going to have to say in a destroyer, when I compare the Xin Yang with the, the tier 8 main line with the tier 8 premium, the sonar, when you're a destroyer, your torpedoes, when you're in a knife fight, it's the torpedoes that are really the problem. And if you're in a knife fight, generally you're close enough that your sonar deals with the smoke. So, these, when you're in a scrap, yeah, I found the sonar to be far more effective at a destroyer level than the radar. However, given the fact that this torpedoes of this thing's fires pose no danger to destroyers, it's not really a knife fighter, so maybe the radar is the better bet. So this is really going after bigger targets like cruisers and battleships. And radar's more of a defensive skill, so that you know where the enemy destroyers are. I mean, you can have a reasonably effective gun battle by the looks of this ship. However, you judge it wrong with the torpedoes and it's all over. So let's go and so those are the guns, very much similar to the Fletcher guns. Anybody uses a Fletcher, away you go. Reload is starting to climb, 63 seconds. So you sort of get maybe 3 or 4 opportunities to dump torpedoes in the water per tube in a game, maybe 4 6-minute games, essentially a minute reload. 5, you could potentially, if you fired torpedoes right at the start of the game, get 5 shots off, but obviously firing torpedoes at the start of the game isn't going to get you any hits, so you're probably looking at 4, maybe 3 shots during the course of a game, depending on how good you are at positioning. They do hit hard, they go a fair distance, and they go a great rate of knots. So obviously they are superior to the Fletcher torpedoes because they are a lot faster. They have about a kilometre longer range. They're slightly harder hitting, but they have a slightly lower reload. And if we compare them with the Yugumo, well, the Yugumo's torpedoes really are a step above the Chungmu, and they can damage destroyers. But then again, I think the Yugumo is a bit sluggish compared to other Tier 9 destroyers. Surface detection 6.1 kilometres. You can bring that down to probably 5.5 with the concealment module, maybe 5.4 or something like that with the high-grade coal. However, that 6.1 kilometre means that you have about 3 kilometres worth of stealth torping range. But at about 6 kilometres and at this tier, I wouldn't expect your opponents to be sitting still. So, and that slow reload means that when you do take a stealth shot, as soon as they hit the rudder, maybe a quarter or a third of your hard-hitting damage potential is gone from the game. So, yep, that is tier 9. Tier 10, we have the Yu Yang. So let's go have a look at this. Let's go have a look at its little specials. 2 radar, which, yeah, definitely you feel a lot more confidence popping off a radar if you've got a second one in the wings. 2 smoke generators, 2 engine accelerators. They are smoke generators, radar and engine accelerator 1s, so they aren't any great shakes. However, let's go have a look at the ship. Before we go any further, details. It's from an L&M Sumner class. So this is actually a 1970s ship. So this is probably one of the most modern ships in the game. Right, let's go have a look at its performance stats. So 16,000 hit points. If it's the L&M Sumner, it's probably the equivalent American destroyer. So let's go do a comparison. Very, very close on the number of hit points. On the speed, 35 knots, maybe 0.2 of a knot faster or something. Reasonable turning statistics there. Okay, guns. It's got turrets this time. Dual turrets. 3.3 second reload. 6 guns. With an 8 kilometre range, just with really standard destroyer damage, 330 or 350. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure in this case I'd be bothered to change to AP. So it just looks like it's got better range than the Fletcher. Right, torpedoes. This is where it come into its own. 63 seconds reload, 4,000 damage, nearly 10 kilometre range, and 70 knots worth of speed. Now obviously the Shimakaze is going to be all over that with about slightly higher damage. 10.1, so about 0.6, 0.7 kilometres faster, 72 knots in the water as opposed to I think 69, so 3 knots faster, and obviously, however, the Yu Yang has a much better flooding chance, assuming of course that's not fired at destroyers, because it'll have a 0% flooding chance because it won't hit. Surface detection 6.22, not too bad, and I think on par probably with the American. Oh hello, I've got, what camera have I got on that? Obviously its detection, well the Hiragamo is the wrong thing, 6.22, and well its detection compared to the Shimakaze, oh, actually I think I've got historical. Okay, I think I have, for some reason I've managed to get historical camo. I wanted to have a look at them, so I've got historical camo, so a fair comparison means that it needs to have historical camo as well. So it's got 6.22 kilometre detection, this has got 6.22, so its surface detection is basically the equivalent of the Shimakaze. So really, that's the line, the Pan-Asian line, which must be due out, I would suspect, given that it's just appeared in my mailbox today. Probably the end of the month it'll be available when the Blitz closes, and you'll be able to grind your way up through these puppies. I'm going to have to say that I haven't been too taken with them. I feel that they are very powerful, very good ships, but bear in mind the fact that I like to shoot down destroyers. The fact that the torpedoes are no danger to destroyers, to me, means that these ships, well, their contribution is going after battleships, and everybody goes after battleships, like everything from the Akazuki through to the other battleships, you know, large cruisers. Everybody likes to take on battleships. Cleveland's like to burn battleships down. Battleships are a sort of a fairly natural target for taking the hits. So the fact that these are really specialised for taking on battleships, maybe cruisers, but less so, because, well, you know, although you can torpedo cruisers, cruisers are a little bit more agile, and if you get it wrong, yeah, they can make your life fairly miserable. So yeah, you know, slightly, probably I'd describe it even as a slightly more selfish ship, where you're sort of a little bit more out for yourself. You have to be, and you know, your contribution to the team is just going out there and landing torpedoes on things, but you're not really able to form an effective part of a task force, you know, which I can do in something like a Leander or a Admiral Hipper or a, you know, a Lo Yang or a, you know, like a Minsk, can quite happily form part of a cluster of ships trying to force a cap. I think for this ship, it probably feels you know, it's a little less able to be that sort of anti-destroyer screen. Anyway, there's some stats. Thanks for watching, and I hope you found this interesting. And we'll catch you next time for another video, probably more of a gameplay video next time.